Kuzizongpo, this week in the business file, we have the Chief Executive Officer of Bhutan National Bank, Mr. Kipchu Tshering. Kuzongpo, sir.
Kuzongpo.
The Bhutan National Bank made a net profit of 510 million Niltram plus.
Yes.
Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, that last year, 2011, was extraordinarily very good year for Bhutan National Bank. We have managed to make double our profit from 2010 to 11. So it has been a very good year for the bank in terms of profitability.
How was that possible?
It has been possible because of there has been enormous growth of loan over the years. And almost every year we have been sanctioning minimum of 2 billion loan on a net sanction basis. So the overall the credit growth has been tremendous last few years, and that resulted into the generation more interest income for the bank, and also there was no idle money lying with the bank. So we have been able to utilize more of the cash that lying with us and convert it into income. So that was the major. But other than that, the BNB has been growing very steadily since the beginning of the bank since 1996, and there has been almost, I think, not less than 20% growth over the years. So that is the this is the cumulative growth that has affected into translation into profit for the bank.
But the credit growth was also blamed as, or was identified as one of the issues for rupee crunch in the country. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it does. It does have meaning to that, but it also has bearing on the overall economy of the country. There has been a tremendous growth since the democratization of the country, and there has been a lot of tremendous expenditure has been made by the government, and that translates into a lot of business people taking opportunities in terms of contract works, in terms of supplies, and all that has translated into the credit growth, and that also translate into whenever, because we don't produce those items within Bhutan. So those are required to be bought from either India or elsewhere. So that translated into imports of a lot of imported items. And again, that has translated into the shortage of rupee crunch within the country.
So do you necessarily see that the growth in credit has a negative impact on the economy, as it was highlighted in a lot of financial reports, including that was published by the Central Bank of Bhutan, the Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan?
It is not necessarily, if the credit growth is in the undesirable areas where you are giving a lot of consumer loans and people are taking loans beyond their means, I think that is undesirable credit growth. But if you give loans on the productive purposes, even for the business purposes, I think it is good for the overall economy of the country, because people are earning and making money out of the deals, the transactions that they're making through the economic growth. So it is indirectly uplifting the social status of the many people who have not been able to get those opportunities in the business. And therefore this has, I think, both positive aspect and negative aspect of credit growth. But we have to see exactly which are the areas where we are growing. And I think we have mostly grown in terms of housing. Housing loan has been, and that is because, again, there is so much of growth in the government sector as well as in the private sector. And growth is, I think, it's always translating over 8%. And that translates into the growth of even the townships, the cities like Thimphu, Phinsoling, Paro, and Nering, Wangdi. All these are growing at a very fast pace because there is demand for housing. So if you don't finance the housing, again, there would have been slums and squatter settlements all over the country. And therefore, it was, I think, housing, which is, in a way, it is a dead investment. But at the same time, I think by way of housing investment, we have lifted the social economic status of the many people, and we are able to give shelter to the people. So that is very important in the housing, because if you can't provide shelter, I think there will be squatter settlement, as I said, and you will have slums, and all those will develop. And thanks to the growth, I think we are able to provide the loans, but it has a negative impact because all those housing materials that we are putting up had to be imported from India or elsewhere. So again, that translates into foreign exchange outgo. So this is again has an economic impact on that. But looking back, if you see the housing stock that we have made, now if you have to same kind of housing stock that has been built over the years, if we suppose have to be built next few years, that amounts to the cost of inflation in those housing items would have been enormous for the country. And there would have been, country would have been into a situation where that the housing shortage would have been always prevailing. And at some point of time, this would not have been a controllable situation. So overall, I think it is good, I would say, even if it's a dead investment.
Leslie, when you mentioned two things like, about the consumer loans and the loans on consumption is not good for the economy. The other thing is you have invested a lot in the housing, which is good. But what we are noticing just now is now once the loans and credit has been uplifted recently, they have started with consumer loans.
Yes.
So how is that going to help the economy in the future?
It will not help, but what we need to do is that we need to improve our own economic conditions, and we need to improve the production within the country. Like Bhutan has enormous scope of in terms of, I would see that agriculture sector, be it animal husbandry, be it agriculture. There's a tremendous scope. We don't have to go in for labor-intensive kind of industries, but there is tremendous scope for setting up agricultural industries. And Bhutan is such a small country that we are importing almost everything from India or elsewhere. And we cannot be dependent at least on the food items, fruits, vegetables, meats, fish, and everything I think we can produce here in Bhutan. But that I think we need to have a proper planning and attempt on the part of the government to see where we are lacking and produce those items within the country so that the foreign exchange outgo on to those items would be less, and the money is retained within the country, and the farmers and the people who are doing those businesses will improve their income through that, and that would translate into retaining the money within the country. But on the other hand, we have bigger industries like, yes, we have hydropowers, I think, which is coming up, but those will, it's a long-term investment, and it is gestation period is long, and we will have to wait till the loan repayment of those hydropowers are over to reap the real benefit of those hydropowers. In the meantime, I think there's a time lag between those and the economic growth, because economic growth has taken so fast that we are not able to produce those items which we want within the country at a short time. And Bhutan being a very small country, we don't have the market for setting up big industries within Bhutan. And we have to be, any big kind of industries that we set up, it has to be products have to be exported to India or elsewhere. But again, that has to be very competitive. So there are very few industries which we can compete at the India or elsewhere, or even China, because those items, they come very cheaply from those countries because they produce in a mass and a bigger scale than us. So, and then transportation problems and even the raw material availability within the country, all these are factors that I think we need to see, that setting up a big industry is not so easy, and it is very competitive. But as I said, there are agriculture-based industries. There's tremendous scope for setting up of so many, like even we can set up, wine. We can produce coffee within Bhutan. We could produce even the beef, quality beef in Bhutan. We could produce fish. Even rainbow trout we can produce here in Bhutan. But this is something which I think the country has to explore, because agriculture has been taken a setback for the last few years. And unless this comes up, the country's the actual consumption requirements, at least the basic requirements, we should be able to produce within Bhutan. But like consumer items like shampoo, soaps, and all this, which I think we are in a very difficult position to produce those, because we will not be very competitive. And those items, I think we need to import in any way, and those are the items which we will not be able to compete in the international market even if we produce. So we have to look into the niche markets, but the niche market is probably, we have to look into the agriculture sector as the focus point if the government has to, if we have to improve our economic situation. Of course, the hydropower and all that is always there. But to improve the rural life and also improve the economic condition of the country in terms of retaining the outgo of foreign exchange, I think that fundamentally we should start with agriculture.
What would be the focus of Bhutan National Bank once you start in terms of financing and investment?
See, we, not only Bhutan National Bank, I think all financial institutions are ready, and we want to genuinely invest into areas where there is, we have, potential to grow, and where, we can really uplift the status of the country in terms of producing those items. But we need the technical backstop from the government and the policy and planning in place. So unless those things are in place, we, no matter how we intend to finance those industries, it's not so easy. But there has to be a proper planning, and there has to be, the market as such, I think, is not for those kind of items, the market we can produce in Bhutan, and also there will be niche market in India. And we can produce all sort of fruits in Bhutan, grow all sort of fruits. From, we have climate conditions from a very warm climate to a very cold climate, a temperate climate. So there is scope for producing any kind of fruit in Bhutan. And vegetables, those are something which people are doing it. But I think the off-season, we could grow many of the items and as a result, the rural-urban migration also will stop. But at the present, what is happening is, because there's no economic scope, the growth and prosperity in the rural areas, so people tend to move to the urban areas in search of employment, in search of doing business, and for education, and therefore there is rural-urban migration is happening in a big way. So that's why the growth of the urban sector has been happening very rapidly for the last few years.
So we started with the profit of the Bhutan National Bank. So, but even when you made a profit in 2011, there was a delay while you were trying to declare the dividends. Why was that so?
There was not really a delay, but it was because we complied with all the regulations, requirements in 2011, December. Everything was complied. But when in 2012 came, there was liquidity shortage within the country, and also our annual general meeting and the accounts are finalized in February and March. So by the time we could finalize those, there was a liquidity shortage within the country, and the central bank felt that it is not right for the bank to declare dividends, and therefore the money should be retained.
Even when you made the profit?
Yes, yes. So finally we negotiated, and we have, through the boards, we requested the central bank, instead of, okay, so we will, instead of declaring bonuses, we will, the dividend, we will give bonus. So for every one share, we have given 2 bonuses. So we made our shareholders happy in that way, because they're able to get more shares, and they could sell those shares in the market, and then they get back whatever if they have a cash flow situation. But at the same time, I think their staff also has not been able to get our regular bonuses because of those various reasons, which central bank has their way of translating, but which, to my own opinion, I think this is the management's and the board's issue within the bank. So the question should not have come into those kind of situation. Because cash flow, it's something which is, it goes into billions, and it is a huge amount. Whereas the bonuses and all this is a small amount for a bank like us.
The other thing is, now 2012 has been a rough year for financial institutions. So what would be the financial position of the bank in the coming year? Or
I do not see any problem as such. There is, yes, in terms of loan recovery, we might have little setback, but in terms of profitability, bank has, we would be able to maintain at least something more than last year. So we are expecting to have that achieved.
So you're going to make more profit this year despite the loan has been suspended?
Loan is suspended, but we have already, before the loan was suspended, we have already sanctioned about $1 billion loan. So that commitment has to be, we have already, dispersing those amounts, even now. But that 1 billion addition itself is adding to the income of the bank. And beyond that, we have already sanctioned, say, 16 billion in 2011. Okay, so when 2012 came by March, we have already sanctioned 17 billion plus loan. So that amount is again generating income for the bank, and even if the loan stops, existing loans which carries interest and income for the bank, that will continue. So that it will not translate into rapid growth of the bank, but it will. We can also maintain the profitability.
But you will not run on loss?
No. There's no way we could run into losses. We have already by third quarter, we have already made profit, so we should be able to generate good income.
The other thing that, not specific to Bhutan National Bank, but what has been found out was the banks were lending money that were there in their deposit, short-term corporate deposits into a long-term loan. Did that happen in BNB or?
No, this happens. It happened to all of us. The major deposits are all in the form of short-term deposits, but in the past, the deposits could be renewed anytime, and even though they could keep it for short term, it was renewed most of the time, and we did not really face a liquidity problem as such. But since 2011, towards the half of 2011 onwards, we started facing liquidity crunch, and by 2012, I think we are more into those, and within December 2011 till 30th September, from BNB there was a total outflow of about 11 billion. Notam had been taken out, all by the corporations which are kept in the short-term deposits. But despite of all this, the bank is still growing. Although 11 billion has been gone out from the bank, but our deposit still maintained at, although it has come down from, say, we had around 22 billion deposits. It came down to about 16 billion. But we still managed to recoup it up to 16 billion in a short time. But as of now, also we are around 18, 19 billion deposits, which again will come down by December. So, but this is sort of it's a cash management situation. But we cannot lend those money now because saturation point has reached for the economy. That is the most important in terms of deposit. The retail deposit is not growing so fast, and the corporate deposits, which is also for a very short term. Plus now everybody is, all the financial institutions and the banks are competing for these short-term, long-term retail deposits, and long-term deposits is very small compared to the corporate deposits.
So when you're talking of retail deposits, so what are you doing to increase the base retail deposit base?
See, what we cannot do much, because it all depends on the saving habits of the people in general, the general economic conditions of the country, and the saving habits of the entire population. And since Bhutanese people are by very nature, we are we're quite spendthrift, but we are not very concerned about what is going to be the future, and because urbanization level has not reached to the people where the people have to, you can't find job, or you cannot, as long as you're willing to work, you can get job even if you're retired. So people always find some ways of finding income, and even settle with their children, or so that of things. So Bhutan is socially we are not faced to that situation. So therefore, people are not saving because all the incomes they want to live it up. So that is the main drawback. But if you really the country has to develop, then there has to be a lot of saving schemes, which thing. But in the case of Bhutan, there is no money in the hands of the people. So if there's the money in the hands of the people, naturally they will keep within the banking system. If they don't keep it in the banking system, they can't keep much money at home. So the growth of those things will be very limited. It all depend on the economic conditions of the country.
No, the earlier you mentioned that housing is a basic necessity for a population, for anywhere in the world. It's a basic necessity. Now, will you be releasing a housing loan when you start your loan?
See, in the case of BNB, we have already reached the housing loan as the maximum amount of loan has been sanctioned in the housing loan. We had a total portfolio of all the loans, 30% has been sanctioned in the housing. And we have a capital requirement for if we exceed more than 20%. Our capital...
of the total capital?
Yeah, from the capital we have to keep more provisions in those, for capital provisioning on those. So that's why we cannot, we probably may not be sanctioning housing loan anymore. But we could sanction business loans, we can sanction motor vehicle loans, and we can sanction all other loans, except housing, and any portfolio that exceeds 20% will have to be more careful. But at the same time, BNB's capital is the biggest. Today, if you look at BNB's capital base, we are over 3.5 billion. And if you look at all other institutions are very small. So we are the biggest in terms of capital. We are the biggest in terms of giving loans. The total loan portfolio, except for the total deposit side, we are a little behind, because we are not in a competitive situation with the other institutions because of different reasons, like government has been banking with the Bank of Bhutan, and then they have a lot of advantage compared to us.
So when you are categorizing housing loan, is it like if somebody wants to own a house, not for a commercial purpose, yes, but own a flat, yes, you're also restricting that?
No, it is not. We keep the same, as long as you comply with the same this thing. We don't have any. We have given a number of loans in terms of flats. A lot of our clients are building houses and then selling into flats, and we are ultimately, transferring the loan to them. and they're taking the loans. There's no issues on those.
So when an individual aspires to own a flat or a house, you still entertain that?
Yes, we have no issues on those.
So now, could you tell us what would be the future of BNB now? Now, what are some of the activities or some of the loans, deposit rates, interest rates? How are going to change it in the future?
See, I cannot expect that drastic change in the thing, but definitely BNB can be a big potential in terms of playing a developmental role in the economy of the country. Because if you look at now, IFC is very keenly want to invest in BNB, and they have done due diligence within the bank. They have looked into the accounts of the bank. They have interviewed our clients. They have looked into the management of the bank. They have looked into governance, and all the issues are covered by the IFC. They have 2 years of the due diligence with the bank, and finally now IFC they're willing to invest in Bhutan 20% of the equity, which will translate into 1.5 billion. So probably by end of December or January, if everything is all right, I think that money will come in, and we would be a little comfortable with those money for some time to come. And I see that as long as there is potential for deposits and the growth in terms of capital by the bank, in terms of management, in terms of manpower, resources, there is no dearth. BNB will play a very big role in the development of the nation. So we would definitely make a big dent in the economy of the country.
Lasla. With that note, I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for talking to us. And for our viewers who are watching this program, I'm your host Ashok Tirwa. Do join us every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. For another Business File program. This is goodbye.